The outcast's dream. The quantum simulator hummed to life as Alex Chen settled into the worn pilot's seat, his fingers hovering over the holographic controls. The familiar scent of ozone and recycled air filled his lungs as the darkness of virtual space materialized around him. This wasn't the prestigious Interstellar Flight Academy's state-of-the-art training facility. It was just a salvaged simulator he'd rebuilt in his grandfather's garage. But to Alex, it was everything. "Running simulation sequence Delta 9, he announced to the empty room, his voice steady despite the excitement bubbling in his chest. The scenario loaded: 3 Karathi warships, notorious for their impossible-to-predict quantum jumping capabilities, bearing down on an Earth colony ship. No cadet had ever successfully completed this simulation. Then again, no cadet approached quantum mechanics quite like Alex did. The first Karathi ship blinked into existence off his port bow, its crystalline hull refracting the light of a nearby star. Most pilots would react to where the ship was. Alex, however, saw the quantum probability waves surrounding it, not through any special technology, but through an innate understanding that his instructors had called dangerous and delusional. He didn't just predict where the Karathi ships would appear, he understood where they could appear. His fingers danced across the controls, guiding his virtual ship through the quantum foam of space itself. To an observer, it would look like random, reckless maneuvering, but each movement was precisely calculated to collapse the quantum probability waves in his favor. The simulation ended with all 3 Karathi ships disabled and the colony ship safe. Alex slumped back in his seat, wiping sweat from his forehead. The screen flashed his score. Perfect. Again, if only it mattered. Still wasting time in that junk heap? His sister Maya's voice cut through his moment of triumph. She stood in the garage doorway, her interstellar fleet uniform pristine, the silver pins of a junior lieutenant catching the light. "The Academy's decision is final, Alex. You're too young, and your theories about quantum probability navigation error are what? Wrong." Alex climbed out of the simulator, his dark eyes flashing with frustration. The traditional methods of space combat are based on classical physics, but the Karathi don't fight that way. They understand that space itself is quantum in nature. Why can't anyone else see it? Maya's expression softened. "You're 14, Alex. The youngest cadet ever accepted was 16, and they had years of conventional flight training. You've never even piloted a real ship." "Because nobody will let me." He gestured at the simulator. "I've run every possible scenario. My success rate is higher than any graduate in fleet history. Age shouldn't matter if..." A deafening siren cut him off. The emergency broadcast system. Maya's communicator buzzed simultaneously, and her face paled as she read the message. "No," she whispered. "It's impossible. They're here." "Who's here?" "The Karathi. A full battle fleet just quantum jumped into Earth orbit. They're everywhere." Alex rushed to his computer terminal, pulling up the public emergency feeds. The images made his blood run cold. Dozens of crystalline ships filled Earth's orbit, their designs exactly matching his simulation models. But these weren't simulations anymore. Maya was already running for her car. "I have to get to the fleet base. Stay here, Alex. Stay safe." "Maya, wait." He grabbed her arm. "The fleet doesn't understand how they fight. They'll be massacred. And what would you have us do? Put a 14-year-old reject in command of a battleship?" The words came out harsh, and he could see the immediate regret in her eyes. "I'm sorry, that's not fair." "No, it's not. But this isn't about fair anymore." Alex pulled up his simulation data. "Look at these patterns. I can predict their movements, their strategy. The fleet needs this information." Maya hesitated, checking her communicator as more urgent messages poured in. The distant sound of emergency sirens filled the air. Finally, she made a decision. "Get in the car." The drive to the fleet base was chaos. The sky above Silicon Valley was filled with emergency shuttles evacuating civilians, while defense platforms began powering up. Platforms Alex knew would be useless against quantum-based warfare. At the gate, Maya's credentials got them through, though the guards gave Alex suspicious looks. Inside, the base was a frenzied hive of activity. Officers ran in every direction. Tactical displays showed the growing Karathi fleet, and through the base's massive windows, Alex could see ships launching into the darkening sky. They found Admiral Chen in the Tactical Command Center. The elderly officer's usual composed demeanor was cracking as reports of failed engagements poured in. "Sir," Maya saluted. "Lieutenant Chen reporting. I have critical tactical information about the Karathi attack patterns." The Admiral barely glanced up. "Lieutenant, we're a bit busy for—" He stopped, finally registering who stood beside her. "Why is there a civilian child in my command center?" "Because that child understands quantum combat better than your entire tactical division," Maya said, with a confidence that made Alex's heart swell. "Sir, please, just look at his data." Before the Admiral could respond, a junior officer shouted from across the room. "Sir, the IFS Artemis just quantum jumped into the debris field. They're trapped." Alex rushed to the tactical display, ignoring the protests of nearby officers. The Artemis was surrounded by quantum probability waves. He could see them in the movement patterns, clear as day. "They're not trapped," he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room. "The Karathi are hurting them. In 30 seconds, 5 ships will materialize here, here, and here." His fingers marked points on the display. "The only escape vector will be through this corridor. But it's a trap. They'll have a dreadnought waiting on the other side." Admiral Chen opened his mouth, likely to order Alex removed, when the tactical display updated. Exactly as predicted, 5 Karathi ships appeared at the marked points. The Artemis, seeing the apparent escape route, began moving toward it. "Stop them!" Alex shouted. The dreadnought, a massive crystalline ship, materialized directly in the Artemis's path. The resulting explosion lit up the tactical display. The command center was dead silent. Admiral Chen stared at Alex, then at the display, then back at Alex. "How did you know?" "Because I understand how they think, how they fight. They don't see space as a fixed thing. They see it as a web of probabilities. Every move they make collapses those probabilities in their favor. But if you can see the probabilities too, you can predict their strategy," the Admiral finished. He studied Alex for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "Lieutenant Chen, your brother." "Not my brother, sir, just a friend of the family. Has just demonstrated more tactical insight into Karathi strategy than we've gained in a decade of study." He turned to Alex. "Young man, I don't care about your age or your rejected academy application. Right now, Earth needs every advantage it can get. Are you willing to help?" Alex straightened his shoulders, trying to look more like the officer he'd always dreamed of becoming. "Yes, sir." "Good, because I have a ship with no pilot, a crew with no hope, and an impossible mission that just might save this planet." Still interested, for the first time since the sirens had started wailing, Alex smiled. "Lead the way, sir." As they hurried through the corridors of the base, Alex couldn't help but think about all the simulations he'd run in his grandfather's garage. They had been practice for a future he thought might never come. Now that future was here, brought by the very enemy he'd been preparing to face. He just hoped that practice would be enough, because this time there would be no reset button. Trial by fire. The IFS Horizon hung in low Earth orbit, its quantum drive core pulsing with barely contained energy. Alex stood on the bridge, trying not to fidget as Admiral Chen addressed the crew through the ship-wide comm system. The crew, his crew now, at least temporarily, hadn't taken their eyes off him since he'd arrived. He couldn't blame them. He probably looked ridiculously young in the hastily modified flight suit. "I know this is unprecedented," the Admiral was saying, his hologram floating above the tactical display. But right now, Earth's survival depends on unconventional thinking. Mr. Chen has demonstrated an understanding of Karathi tactics that could turn the tide of this battle. You will afford him the same respect you would any fleet officer. The bridge crew's expressions ranged from skeptical to outright hostile. Captain Sarah Drake, a veteran of the Proxima campaign, stepped forward. With all due respect, Admiral, this is insane. He's a child. A child who predicted the Artemis ambush down to the second. Chen countered. Captain Drake, I'm not asking you to like this. I'm ordering you to give him a chance to save your ship and possibly this planet. The transmission ended, leaving an uncomfortable silence on the bridge. Alex took a deep breath and walked to the pilot's station. The neural interface controls gleamed, far more sophisticated than his salvage simulator. This was the moment he'd dreamed of and dreaded. The quantum core is calibrated to standard fleet specifications, the ship's engineer, Dr. Patel, said from her station. Though I don't see how that helps us against ships that can appear anywhere at will. Alex's fingers moved across the controls, making subtle adjustments. They can't actually appear anywhere. Quantum jumping follows strict probability patterns. We just haven't been looking at them the right way. The holographic displays shifted, showing new layers of data. There. Now we can see what I see. The tactical display transformed, overlaying the space around them with ghostly waves of potential energy. Several bridge officers gasped. Where before they had seen empty space, now they could see the quantum probability fields, the places where Karathi ships were most likely to materialize. This is impossible, Dr. Patel whispered, studying the new data. These readings violate half a dozen laws of physics. Only if you assume space is continuous. Alex replied, still adjusting the sensors. The Karathi know better. Space itself is quantum in nature. Their ships don't just jump through it. They surf the probability waves. A warning klaxon cut through the discussion. Multiple quantum signatures detected. Lieutenant Park announced from Tactical. 5. No, 7 Karathi vessels on approach. Captain Drake straightened in her command chair. Battle stations. Mr. Chen, I hope you're as good as the Admiral thinks you are. Alex's hand settled on the controls, and suddenly all his doubts fell away. This wasn't a simulation anymore, but in many ways, that made it simpler. No more hypotheticals. No more theories. Just him, the ship, and the quantum foam of space itself. They'll try to box us in, he said, his voice steady. Standard Karathi doctrine is to force enemies into predictable escape vectors. But we're not going to play by their rules. The first Karathi ship appeared exactly where Alex had predicted, its crystalline hull shimmering with weapon energy. The Horizon's conventional targeting systems couldn't get a lock. The enemy was already shifting into another quantum jump. But Alex wasn't aiming at where the ship was. His fingers danced across the controls, guiding the Horizon through a series of maneuvers that looked random, but followed the underlying quantum patterns perfectly. Energy torpedoes launched not at the Karathi vessel, but at the probability nexus where it would have to emerge. The resulting explosion as the enemy ship materialized directly into the torpedo spread drew shocked gasps from the bridge crew. How did you? Lieutenant Park started. Less talking, more shooting. Alex interrupted, his focus absolute. Target the coordinates I'm sending to Tactical. Fire on my mark. What followed was unlike any space battle in human history. The Horizon moved like a quantum ghost itself, always one step ahead of the Karathi ambush patterns. Where other human ships would have tried to react to the enemy's movements, Alex had the Horizon responding to possibilities before they became reality. 2 more Karathi ships fell to precisely predicted torpedo spreads. A third was caught in its own quantum wake when Alex used the Horizon's gravitational field to disrupt its jump pattern. The remaining vessels, clearly confused by tactics they'd never encountered before, began to retreat. They're regrouping, Alex announced, studying the probability fields. But something's wrong. These attack patterns are too simple. Almost like. His eyes widened as he saw the real threat materializing in the quantum foam. Emergency quantum jump. Now. We can't. Dr. Patel shouted. The core needs 3 minutes, Toe. We don't have 3 seconds. Alex's hands flew across the controls, initiating a desperate maneuver. Everyone brace. The space around the horizon erupted as a massive Karathi dreadnought emerged from a quantum jump barely a kilometer away. Its main weapon, a quantum disruptor that could tear a ship apart at the subatomic level, was already charging. But Alex had been ready. Instead of trying to escape, he drove the horizon straight at the dreadnought. The quantum probability waves showed him the one path where their survival wasn't impossible, just highly improbable. The horizon skimmed along the dreadnought's hull, so close that the crystalline surface scraped their shields. The enemy vessel's quantum disruptor fired, but without room to properly form its probability field, the weapon's energy scattered harmlessly into space. Tactical, full-spread, aft tubes. Alex commanded. Target their quantum core housing. The horizon's torpedoes struck home just as they cleared the dreadnought's bow. The massive ship's quantum field collapsed, transforming it from a coherent vessel into a rapidly expanding cloud of probability functions seeking their lowest energy state. In simple terms, it exploded spectacularly. Silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the hum of systems and the occasional spark from overloaded circuits. Captain Drake stood slowly from her chair and walked to the pilot's station. Alex remained focused on the controls, running damage assessment routines. That, Drake said carefully, was either the most brilliant or the most insane display of piloting I've ever witnessed. A small smile crossed her face. Possibly both. Thank you, Captain, Alex replied, finally allowing himself to breathe normally. Though I should warn you, that was just their scouting force. The main fleet is still out there, and now they know we can fight them on their terms. Drake nodded, her expression turning serious again. Then we'd better make sure the rest of the fleet learns to see what you see. Dr. Patel, work with Mr. Chen to distribute his quantum probability detection modifications to all fleet vessels. Yes, Captain, Patel answered, already pulling up the relevant data. Though I still don't understand half of what I'm looking at. Understanding can come later, Alex said, standing from the pilot's chair on slightly shaky legs. Right now, we need to prepare. The Karathi will analyze every moment of that battle, adapt their tactics. Next time will be harder. Good thing we have you then, Drake replied. She addressed the entire bridge crew. I think we all owe Mr. Chen an apology. Age clearly has nothing to do with ability or courage. The crew nodded in agreement, their earlier skepticism replaced with newfound respect. But Alex barely noticed. His attention was still on the quantum probability displays, watching the patterns shift and flow. Something about the Karathi attack bothered him. Their tactics had been too simple, their retreat too quick. They were testing us, he realized, learning how we'd react. The real battle hadn't even begun. As if sensing his thoughts, the quantum probability fields rippled with new potential energy signatures. Somewhere out there, the main Karathi fleet was preparing its response. Alex settled back into the pilot's chair, ready to face whatever came next. He'd proven he could handle one ship. Now it was time to prove he could help save Earth itself. Breaking tradition. The Fleet Academy's Grand Hall had never been this crowded. Alex sat at the center of a semicircle of admirals and fleet commanders, his formal uniform still stiff and uncomfortable. 3 days had passed since the battle that had saved the horizon, and in that time, everything had changed. Let me understand this correctly, Admiral Harrison said, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display showing Alex's quantum probability calculations. You're suggesting that the Karathi attack wasn't just a raid or an invasion attempt. You believe they're searching for something. The pattern is clear, sir. Alex stood, manipulating the holographic data with practiced ease, Look at their search grid. Every quantum jump they've made follows a specific geometric progression. They're methodically scanning Earth's quantum probability field for something that resonates at a very specific frequency. Dr. Patel, who had become one of Alex's strongest advocates, stepped forward. The boy's right. We've analyzed the data from every Karathi incursion over the past decade. They're not random attacks. They're systematic sweeps, getting progressively closer to whatever they're looking for. The assembled officers murmured among themselves. Captain Drake, attending via hologram from the Horizons Bridge, spoke up. The question is, what could be so important that they'd risk open war to find it? Alex took a deep breath. This was the part that would be hardest to explain. I think it's something they lost a long time ago. He pulled up new data, deep-sea quantum resonance scans he'd been running between battles, and I think I know where it is. The display shifted to show a section of the Pacific Ocean floor, overlaid with quantum probability waves that pulsed with an alien rhythm. There's something down there, buried in the Mariana Trench. Something that doesn't match any known terrestrial quantum signature. It's been there for thousands of years, maybe longer. Impossible, Harrison scoffed. We would have detected. No, we wouldn't have, Dr. Pidal interrupted. Not with conventional sensors. We didn't even know we should be looking for quantum signatures until Alex showed us how. She gestured to the data. Whatever's down there, it's been hiding in plain sight, masked by the Earth's own quantum field. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the building. Lieutenant Park's voice came over the comm. Multiple Karathi signatures detected. Biggest fleet yet. They're forming a grid pattern directly over the Mariana Trench. They figured it out too, Alex said quietly. They know where it is now. Admiral Chen stood, his decision already made. Captain Drake, get the Horizon ready for deep-sea operations. Dr. Patel, I want whatever's down there found before the Karathi can reach it. And Mr. Chen. He paused, looking at the young pilot who had changed everything they thought they knew about space combat. I'm officially enrolling you in the Fleet Academy, effective immediately. Special circumstances clause. Sir. Alex blinked in surprise. You've more than proven yourselves, son. Besides, Chen smiled slightly. I think recent events have shown us that some traditions need breaking. The Academy will have to adapt, just like we're adapting to face this threat. The next 12 hours were a blur of preparation. The Horizon, originally designed for space combat, had to be modified for deep-sea operations. Alex spent hours with Dr. Patel, recalibrating the quantum sensors to work underwater, while other crew members reinforced the hull against extreme pressure. But it was the conversation with his sister Maya that truly marked how much had changed. She found him in the ship's observation deck, staring at the distant lights of the Karathi fleet hovering in orbit. So, she said, sitting beside him, a full Academy commission, youngest in fleet history. Mom and Dad would have been proud. Alex smiled softly. They always said age was just a number. That what mattered was being ready when your moment came. He turned to her. I'm sorry I didn't listen when you tried to protect me from disappointment. And I'm sorry I didn't see what you could really do. She put an arm around his shoulders. But that's the thing about traditions. Sometimes they need someone brave enough to challenge them. Their moment was interrupted by Captain Drake's voice over the comm. All hands to stations. We begin our descent in 10 minutes. As they walked to the bridge, Maya asked the question that had been bothering all of them. What do you think we'll find down there? Alex shook his head. I don't know. But whatever it is, the Karathi wanted badly enough to risk everything. And he hesitated. There's something else. Something I haven't told the admirals yet. What? The quantum signature we're tracking. It's not just alien. It's alive. Or at least, it was once. We're not just looking for some ancient artifact. We're looking for something that was left here. Maybe even hidden here. The implications of that statement hung between them as they reached the bridge. The Horizon's crew was at their stations, ready to attempt something no space vessel had ever done before. Through the main viewport, the dark waters of the Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly before them. Captain Drake nodded to Alex as he took his place at the pilot's station. "Ready to make some more history, Mr. Chen." Alex's hand settled on the controls, feeling the ship respond to his touch. The quantum probability fields looked different underwater, denser, more complex, but still readable to his unique perception. "Ready, Captain. Though I should warn you, there's something else down there, besides what we're looking for. Hostile." "No." Alex studied the quantum patterns, trying to understand what they were telling him, but definitely aware. "Whatever the Karathi lost, I don't think it's been alone all these years." Drake exchanged glances with Dr. Patel, then made the decision that would change humanity's understanding of its own history forever. "Take us down, Mr. Chen. Let's see what's been hiding in Earth's oceans." The Horizon began its descent into the depths, its powerful lights illuminating waters that had never seen human technology. Above them, the Karathi fleet waited, their own sensors probing the depths. The race to uncover an ancient secret had begun, and humanity's future might depend on who reached it first. As the pressure increased and the darkness closed in around them, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't just about to discover something. They were about to be discovered by something. The quantum patterns told a story of waiting, of patience measured in millennia, of ancient plans finally coming to fruition. The real question wasn't what they would find in the depths. The question was, what would find them? The hidden truth. The Horizon's hull groaned under the immense pressure as they descended deeper into the Mariana Trench. At 10,000 meters below sea level, the darkness outside was absolute, broken only by the ship's powerful searchlights cutting through the black water. Alex's fingers moved constantly over the controls, making minor adjustments to compensate for the crushing depths. "Hull integrity at 87%, Dr. Paddle reported from her station. "The quantum field modifications are holding, but we're pushing the limits of what this ship was designed for." Captain Drake nodded, her eyes fixed on the main viewport. "How much further, Mr. Chen?" "Close," Alex replied, studying the quantum probability patterns that only he could truly understand. "The signal is getting stronger, but different. It's like it's responding to our presence." Lieutenant Park suddenly straightened at his tactical station. "Multiple contacts. Something's moving out there." The searchlights caught glimpses of massive shapes gliding through the water around them. At first, they appeared to be sea creatures, but their movements were too precise, too coordinated. Their surfaces reflected light in ways that suggested advanced metallurgy rather than biological tissue. "They're machines," Dr. Patel whispered, her sensors giving her a clearer picture. "But the technology, it's like nothing we've ever seen. They're using quantum fields for propulsion, just like the Karathi, but the design is completely different." "Guardians," Alex said softly, watching the quantum patterns shift around the mysterious machines. "They've been down here all along, protecting whatever the Karathi are looking for." Before anyone could respond, a new quantum signature bloomed in Alex's consciousness. It was vast, complex, and undeniably conscious. A voice filled the bridge, not through speakers but directly in their minds, carried on waves of quantum probability. "The child who sees has finally arrived," it said, its mental voice ancient and tired. "We have waited so long." The crew looked at each other in shock, but Alex felt a strange sense of recognition. "You're what the Karathi are looking for." "No," the voice replied. "I am merely its keeper. The ones you call Karathi seek their own past, the key to their future. They have forgotten so much, become so lost in their quantum wanderings." The water around them began to glow with a soft, blue-green light. Ahead, something massive was taking shape, a structure that seemed to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously, only becoming fully real as they approached. "By the stars," Drake breathed. "It's a city." But it was more than that. As they drew closer, Alex could see that the entire structure was one vast machine, its architecture beyond anything humanity had achieved. The Guardian machines took up positions around them, not threatening but definitely watching. "What you see is the archive," the voice explained. "A repository of knowledge from a time before your species had mastered fire. The Karathi were not always as you know them now. Once, they were peacekeepers, guardians of young civilizations, but something changed them, turned them from protectors to hunters. Images filled their minds. The Karathi, as they once were, organic beings who had mastered quantum mechanics not for war, but for exploration and growth. Then came the darkness, a corruption in their quantum technology that slowly transformed them, making them dependent on quantum jumping, turning them into the crystalline beings they were now. They believe the archive contains the key to reversing their transformation." The voice continued. "They are not wrong, but they are not ready. The cure would destroy them as they are now. They must remember who they were first. And that's why you chose Earth." Alex asked, beginning to understand. "You hid the archive here because we saw the potential in your species, the same drive to explore, to protect, to grow. But most importantly, we saw the potential for ones like you, child who sees. Those who could understand quantum reality not as a weapon, but as it truly is, the fabric that connects all things." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Park's voice was tense. "The Karathi fleet is moving. They're preparing for a massive quantum jump. Looks like they're trying to teleport directly into the trench. They cannot be allowed to reach the archive," the voice said urgently. "Not as they are now. The knowledge here must be earned, not taken." Alex's mind raced through the possibilities, watching the quantum probability waves shift and flow. The Guardian machines, they're not just protectors, are they? They're teachers. Yes, they have waited for ones who could learn. Then teach me. Alex stood from his pilot's station, his decision made. Show me what the Karathi need to remember. If I can understand it, maybe I can help them understand too. The voice was silent for a moment, and Alex could feel it studying him, reading the quantum patterns of his very thoughts. Finally, it spoke. Your mind is young, but your understanding is deep. Very well, but be warned, what you learn here will change you, change your entire species' understanding of reality. Captain Drake stepped forward. Alex, wait. This is too much responsibility for one person, let alone someone your age. But Alex shook his head, smiling slightly. Age is just a number, Captain. What matters is being ready when your moment comes. He turned to the crew. The Karathi aren't evil. They're lost. They've forgotten what their power was meant for. Maybe that's why I can see what they see, so I could help them remember. The Guardian machines moved closer, their surfaces beginning to pulse with the same blue-green light as the archive. The voice spoke one last time. Are you prepared, child who sees? To understand is to change, and to change is to bear the responsibility of knowledge. Alex looked at his sister Maya, who had been silent throughout the exchange. She nodded, tears in her eyes but pride on her face. Go, she said softly. Break one more tradition. The Guardian machines surrounded him, their quantum fields synchronizing with his own unique perception. As the knowledge began to flow into his mind, Alex understood that this was what he had been preparing for all along. Not just to prove himself, but to help bridge the gap between what humanity was and what it could become. Above them, the Karathi fleet began its desperate quantum jump. But this time, Alex knew, the battle wouldn't be won with weapons or tactics. It would be won with understanding, with the wisdom of ages past, and with the courage to forge a new path forward. The final confrontation was about to begin, but its true nature would be very different from what anyone, human or Karathi, had expected. A new era. The quantum realm blazed with energy as the Karathi fleet began its desperate jump into the Mariana Trench. On the horizon's bridge, time seemed to slow as Alex opened his eyes, now glowing with the same blue-green light as the archive. The knowledge of ages flowed through him, transforming his understanding of reality itself. "They're coming," he said, his voice resonating with new power. "But we're ready." The Guardian machines moved into formation around the horizon, their quantum fields synchronizing with patterns Alex now understood completely. The archive's ancient consciousness merged with his own, showing him not just the quantum probability waves, but the very purpose they had evolved to serve. "Multiple quantum signatures," Lieutenant Park announced. "The Karathi fleet is materializing everywhere." The water around them erupted with crystalline ships, their hulls glowing with weapon energy. But instead of attacking, they froze, their quantum fields detecting something they hadn't encountered in millennia: the pure, untainted quantum resonance of their own past. Alex stood from his pilot's chair and walked to the center of the bridge. When he spoke, his words carried on quantum waves that every Karathi ship could receive. "You've forgotten who you are," he said, not with judgment but with compassion. "Let me remind you." Through the quantum network that connected all Karathi vessels, Alex shared what the archive had shown him. Images flooded their collective consciousness, the Karathi as they once were, peaceful explorers and protectors of younger races. He showed them how their desperation to advance their quantum technology had led to the corruption that transformed them, turning protection into paranoia, exploration into exploitation. "The cure you seek isn't just a piece of technology," Alex continued. "It's remembrance, understanding. You have to choose to be what you once were." The Karathi fleet hung motionless in the dark water, their quantum fields fluctuating with uncertainty. Then, from the largest ship, a response came, not in words, but in quantum pulses that Alex could now read like a book. "We remember," the Karathi leader transmitted, "but we cannot change back. We have gone too far." "No," Alex replied, and with a gesture, he activated the archive's deepest protocols. The Guardian machines began to move, forming a vast network around both human and Karathi ships. Change is always possible. The archive wasn't hidden here just to keep it safe. It was placed here to prepare humanity to help you when the time came. The water between the ships began to crystallize, not with the harsh angles of Karathi technology, but with the flowing, organic patterns of their original form. The archive itself was transforming, revealing its true purpose, not just a repository of knowledge, but a bridge between what was and what could be. "Your quantum jumping isn't just a weapon or a means of travel," Alex explained, sharing the archive's deepest insights. "It's a way of connecting, of bringing different realities together. You forgot that connection doesn't mean control. It means understanding, growth, harmony." Dr. Patel's sensors were going wild as the quantum fields around them shifted in ways she'd never seen. The archive is rewriting their quantum signatures. It's healing them. The transformation was beautiful and terrible to witness. The crystalline shells of the Karathi ships began to pulse with organic light, their rigid structures flowing like liquid metal. Inside, the Karathi themselves were remembering what it meant to be whole, to be connected without being consumed by the connection. But the process was dangerous. The quantum energies involved were enormous, threatening to tear apart the fabric of space-time itself. The horizon's hull groaned under the strain, its structural integrity dropping rapidly. "We need to get out of here," Captain Drake ordered. "The ship can't take much more." "Not yet," Alex said calmly. "We have to complete the connection. The Karathi aren't the only ones who need to change." He turned to his sister Maya, smiling softly. "Humanity is ready for the next step. We've proven we can see beyond age, beyond tradition, beyond our own limitations. Now it's time to see beyond our own world." The archive's energy surged through the Guardian machines, creating a quantum matrix that encompassed both fleets. In that moment, every human on the horizon felt what Alex had experienced: the true nature of quantum reality, the interconnectedness of all things, the potential that lay waiting in the space between possibilities. "This is what the archive was preparing us for," Alex said, his voice carrying to every ship, human and Karathi alike. Not just to help you remember who you were, but to help us become what we can be. Together. The transformation reached its peak. The Karathi ships, once angular and threatening, had become organic masterpieces of quantum engineering. Their crews, restored to their original forms, reached out with newfound understanding to their human counterparts. The Guardian machines, their long vigil finally complete, began to power down, their purpose fulfilled. As the quantum energies stabilized, Alex swayed slightly, the archive's consciousness gradually withdrawing from his mind. Maya caught him, tears of joy and pride streaming down her face. "You did it, little brother. You changed everything." "We all did," Alex replied, looking around at the crew, at Captain Drake's proud smile, at Dr. Patel's amazed expression as she studied the new quantum readings, at Lieutenant Park's look of wonder as he watched the transformed Karathi ships through the viewport. The Karathi leader's voice came again, but this time in clear, harmonious tones that everyone could hear. "The child who sees has given us back ourselves. In return, we offer what we once were: teachers, protectors, friends. Earth will no longer be alone among the stars." Captain Drake stepped forward. "And humanity will never be the same. Mr. Chen, it seems you've broken every tradition we had and given us new ones to build." Alex looked out at the transformed fleet, at the archive now pulsing with renewed purpose, at the quantum probability waves that danced between all of them, human, Karathi, and the vast unknown that waited beyond. "That's the thing about traditions," he said, remembering his own journey from rejected candidate to the bridge between worlds. "The best ones don't constrain us. They remind us of what we can become." The horizon began its ascent from the depths, but now it wasn't alone. Human and Karathi ships rose together, their quantum fields harmonizing in ways that would reshape both civilizations. Above them, the stars waited, not as a battlefield, but as a frontier to be explored by races who had learned to see beyond their differences. A new era had begun, born not from conflict but from understanding, not from power but from wisdom. And somewhere in the depths of the Mariana Trench, the archive continued its ancient vigil, waiting for the next young race, ready to learn that the greatest journeys begin with seeing what others could not. For Alex Chen, former rejected candidate and now bridge between worlds, it was just the beginning. The quantum probability waves stretched out before him, showing paths and possibilities that would take lifetimes to explore. But that was okay. He had time, he had allies, and most importantly, he had finally found his place among the stars.